Maria, let's come to you on that one. What are your thoughts on that?
No kimosabi. Don't think the teachers be done. They already trying to make sure that they're not hitting nobody, fight nobody back. And some people, just because they're a teacher doesn't mean that they're mentally stable to have a gun.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for a brand new episode of Four Friends in a Book. I'm Chris Colston, joined here with Isaiah Tukes, Kimberly Lake, and Laria Reed. So if you're new to the channel, Four Friends in a Book podcast is our monthly podcast series. We have a discussion centered around a book that we're reading together, and we meet here for the discussion of that book and any topics, current events that may or may not relate to that book. And of course, we hit you guys with these rants at the end. So somewhat of a book club, book review, mixed with just table talk amongst friends. So again, if you guys haven't already, please like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, family member, coworker about our podcast. And also hit us up in the comments, slide in our DMs, send us an email, leave us a review. We would love to hear from you guys. If you have any feedback or if you have any book recommendations or topics you want us to discuss here on Four Friends in a Book. So, again, Four Friends in a Book podcast. We read books over here. So for this month, we're in the kind of the short story genre of books. We're reading a good selection. So Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Thompson-Spires. Interesting read in our June selection for this month. Again, kind of a collection of just short stories, really kind of highlighting and capturing the Black experience living in the United States of America. So let's get into the discussion. Let's unpack. Let's talk about this book, Heads of the Colored People. So yeah, let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So overall thoughts, always my first question. Overall thoughts about this book. And we gonna start with Ms. Lake on this. We're gonna come to her first.
Okay. Well, my overall thoughts on the book are I actually enjoyed the book. I didn't know what to think about it because one, I don't read short stories that often, or I don't think ever really. And two, with the title, I didn't know where it was going or what kind of content was in it. But I thought it was a really good book. It was short stories, but they were all about different types of people, and like some were like serious stories, some were like random stories, some were like dark humor kind of stories. So it was like all different kind of genres within the book. So that's why I enjoyed it. So it gave a good variety. So if you're looking for a book that has different things in it to keep you interested, I think this would be a great book to read.
Sure.
Okay, good. All right, coming to my boy Isaiah. What were your thoughts on this book, man?
My thoughts were, generally like Kim's, I usually don't tend to pick up short story books. And this was my first time even reading anything that Nafissa actually wrote. But to me, this was actually a good read. The writing is sharp, clever, and funny. As a Black writer writing about Black Americans, the stories, of course, are about race, but they're just never about race. And I think Nafissa did like a good job with looking and laughing at ways of the Black expression, ways of identifying and, defining our Blackness that, often has no bounds. And in that way, she makes you pause from holding your side and meditating on what you actually being read. And this is often difficult to achieve, with short stories due to like the nature of the genre. And I think that this book is kind of, like the storytelling that shifts perspectives, starting with those of us that felt that, through our cities and our experiences and our struggles went unseen, but just reading these stories, like we're all on this same journey together, and our stories actually aren't isolated at all.
That's good. That's an interesting perspective. All right, coming to Ms. Reed on this one. Your thoughts, your overall just opinion of this book Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Thompson-Spires.
Well, I like the book. The first chapter. Well, first of all, I should have been paying attention when we said what the book was and the summary of kind of what it was, short stories. So the first chapter I was listening to because I listened on Audible. And then when it went to the second chapter, I was like, okay, wait a minute, this isn't a continuation. I was like, oh, it's short stories. Okay. But I was so far in on the first chapter, I was wanting some more to go along with the first chapter. But going on to the different stories, I enjoyed it because it was reflective for me. Because I started thinking about a lot of the scenarios and things that I've gone through, as well as some of the things that she was saying about the different characters. I like the way it was well-rounded. It was different people, different kinds of Black people, different types of, I mean, if you're Black, you've gone through at least one of these experiences from the short story. So I really, really liked it. I liked the writing. I liked the way it was, Isaiah used a good word, sharp. It was very sharp, very well thought. I could tell she thought this thing through. And it was very, I'm trying to think of how I should say it. It felt like she had friends that gave her some stories or something. I don't know, but it just felt so real. I was like, yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah, that's exactly. So that's how I really liked it. It was cool.
Okay, yeah, I agree with all you guys. It was a good, interesting read. I think we're all kind of on the same page here. Not a big fan of short stories. And honestly, I think because, and you guys kind of alluded to it as well, like you read these short stories, and just when I was really getting into it, it just stopped.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true.
And so that was kind of the hard part with me with this book. Nafissa does a great job of really kind of setting up the groundwork. And like I said, it's really short, concise, condensed, but she lays it out so well that you really get involved, you get intrigued by these characters, and then it just kind of, it stops, it ends. So my only complaint was like, man, I really want to hear the extended version of these stories. The short stories kind of threw me for a loop because I got involved, I got engaged, and then it just ended. So you guys kind of mentioned it as well. We kind of go to the next topic, just a series of different short stories. I mean, we have, hearing stories of Fatima, Suicide Watch, the conversation about bread, just different stories within this collection that really highlight and capture kind of the Black experience and really just shows the diversity within us, that we're not really monolithic as a culture of people. We have different aspects, different sides of us, different expressions of us. And I think she does a good job of really conveying that throughout these different short stories that are just kind of interwoven throughout this book. So with that being said, what was your favorite short story of this book? And I'm gonna come to Isaiah on this. I'm gonna start with you, brother. What was that short story that really just drawed you in, kind of captivated you, intrigued you as you're reading this collection?
I tried to, narrow this down, but I really actually can pick two of them. The first one I think I choose is Belle's letter, which is, the mothers exchanging notes in their daughters' backpacks. That was a good, and I had to catch myself because I'm laughing as I'm reading the books because I'm like, these grown women are talking to each other in these letters like this, like it wasn't no censorship. Like they are really getting down to how they feel about their daughters, and they're passing notes to their book bags. And the next story for me, I think, was the necessary changes have been made, dealing with office politics at a HBCU. I think that this book's, talked about, office gender, politics, and traditional at a Black university. And I think it centers around a young Black professor. I think he was Black, a Black professor, Randolph, which actually came from a liberal college and came over to a HBCU. Didn't want anyone to turn the lights on in his office because I think he had something central in his eyes and had to use natural light. I'm like, who does that? But we have all experienced that kind of scenario when we're in an office setting of people just coming in from different aspects of life, and you just have to deal with them in a certain situation.
that's true.
That's good. That's good. All right, coming to Miss Reed, Laria Reed on this one. What was that story or a few stories, a collection of stories for you through this book that really just kind of resonated and was your favorite or stand out?
Well, the one that stood out to me was Fatima and Violet. I don't know what the name of that one was, but I think it was just Fatima. I can't remember. But anyway, she reminded me of myself in certain instances because she wasn't Black enough for the Black people, but she wasn't white enough for the white people. She was just like in between. And then she has a friend, which was very odd. Her friend is albino. Her name is Violet, and she's teaching her the Black experience, And so she's kind of playing it cool because she's got the blonde hair and the eye color and all that. So the Black people think of her in a certain way during the early 90s. And it was just a lot. And it was in the early 90s, just like it was with me, because they were calling her a white girl. That's what I was called in middle school. I was called white girl. It was kind of like a whole, I was like, oh my God, this is me in certain instances. It was the same kind of way. So it was very, like I said in the beginning, this whole book was very reflective for me. And with those stories, that whole section, I don't want to give all of it away if you're reading the book, but when she talks about all the different things and even dating a white guy, I never did that. But it almost happened, but the white dude was scared. He was scared. This is in high school. But anyway, so, but yeah, just the whole trying to, and she even talked about getting her Black experience from going to church, which was me. I was like, oh my God, yeah, because when I was in school, I was like maybe the only Black person there, just like her, being in a private school at the time. So I just really identified with that. And that was like one of the chapters that stuck out to me the most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good. Kim, what about you? What was that story or a few stories that really just kind of resonated, stood out, that you really kind of connected with as you're reading this book, The Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Thompson-Spires?
Well, Isaiah and I are on the same wavelength because those two actually were my favorite short stories. I love Belle's letters because it just reminded me of like modern day would be like the Housewives of Atlanta. It was just like shady, juicy, two parents going back and forth, throwing shade at each other, but using their children. So I just thought it was very entertaining. And then the other short story reminded me of myself and the little microaggressions you have sharing the space with somebody. Like they did, so he couldn't turn on the lights because he had migraines. So his coworker had to kind of be in the dark, but she wanted the light on and all that stuff. But I remember like in college, I had a roommate that like, it was a thing. So we did a lot of that stuff in the room for like the whole year. Like I'm watching a TV program, you watching on your TV loud, I turn up my TV, you go to sleep with the music on, I got to turn your music down. Like it was a whole thing. So I related to that because I just lived that for my freshman year in college. But those were two of my favorite stories in the book.
Nah, that's good. I agree with you guys. I think all the stories are very relatable. I really love Belle's letters as well, and how it actually kind of rolled into hearing. And you start with the parents going back and forth and bickering, and you can really see. I mean, you got two, doctors, mothers that are very, adamant about securing their daughters' futures and just kind of making sure that they're good, and just kind of being petty for the most part, going back and forth, arguing about stuff and kind of hearsay and gossip type of stuff. And I think in the end they end up being friends or something. But I think the reason I like that one because that was kind of the starting point for even the second and the third story where it kind of really got into Fatima's life and her and I can't remember the other girl's name, but like the only two Black students within the school. You kind of hear that story and kind of their perspective. So I think again this was a short story, so this one was kind of a collection that kind of kept, I guess, moving or whatever. So I was really drawn in by that one. But yeah, it was a lot of other ones. The other one for me was Not Today, Marjorie. So everybody can relate to this. You in the DMV, I don't care where you at, what city, state, DMV is always horrible. Like just the lines are always long. You spend a whole day in there waiting. Just really hearing her story, just kind of the frustration she has of being in here, seeing people kind of bickering, wasting time, not being efficient. So that was also a good story. So just again, a lot of stories that I think we all can relate to, that we all have probably some experience with as well. And so she does a good job really putting that in a book form, short story form, and really just kind of captivating you. I would really love to just see these things like brought to film or even like on YouTube as like shorts. I would think would really kind of play out well in that form as well. So all right, so we kind of talked about it, and I kind of hit on it a little bit as well. So Nafissa does a good job of really just kind of showing, I guess, the Black experience within America. So different perspectives from different people, different backgrounds, different walks of life. So what do you guys think were some of the major themes throughout the book, or that were kind of highlighted from that perspective, or the thing that you kind of picked up on as you were reading it? And I'm going to come to Larry on this one. What was a theme or like a kind of topic that you really thought was being pushed throughout this book, or that you kind of identified as you were reading Heads of the Colored People?
The biggest thing that I got from it is, I guess, the underlying current is that everybody is in a different place within their Black experience, within their lives. And so sometimes, and maybe I'm reading too much into it because I'm like kind of an optimist, but it just feels like even from the first chapter, it's a man trying to sell something, and it's a man trying to go to the anime convention or whatever he's going to. So it's like you're seeing where he is, you're seeing where this, and one of them means one thing from something, and the other one takes it a different way. And it's kind of like we're all on this journey together in a sense, and we all have our own backgrounds, our own where we came from, and to be respectful of that, and to just kind of just chill out because we're all of color and we're in this thing together. So that's kind of what I got from, if you really look at all of the stories, the underlining thing, even with the petty letters, it was, I'm doing this and my daughter is doing that. And really what it was there's two mothers who are really overachievers who had to fight to get to where they are. And they just want to make sure that their children are taken care of, so it was always like an undercurrent of, be respectful of other people's experiences. That's what I got from it.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I agree. I think it was really very telling of the different type of experiences that we have. So, even you're talking about these mothers, so kind of middle class in a situation or scenario where, they want their children to do well. They're only Black students within a predominantly white institution, and kind of dealing with that whole thing as far as trying to climb the corporate ladder, but also making sure that your daughters are doing well and adjusting, and kind of the social aspects of that. So even getting into politics, and so you also hear themes of like sexuality and kind of just body image, how you're presented, how you're represented. So even talking about the dressing up in the kind of anime or costume, like cosplay type of stuff, which isn't traditionally something that we have been kind of at the forefront of. But again, there's an audience for that, and we're not just so boxed in that we just have to be all about certain activities. Like we can kind of really cross the spectrum. So I think those were some of the things that I kind of picked up on, even topics of religion, interracial dating. So just a lot of different topics that I think we all can relate to within our culture, within the Black experience of being in the United States. So,
Most definitely.
Right. Kim, what themes or topics kind of stood out to you as you read these different short stories?
For me, everybody kind of touched on it, but it was just basically that, yes, we are Black, but we all have varied experiences within our Blackness. So I liked how she highlighted, as you said, the kid that goes to the anime conventions, because I know a lot of Black kids that go to those things. The Black girl that has the eating disorder, we never really hear about that. The Jack and Jill rich parents in that part of society, somebody coming from a white environment coming into a Black environment working. So it's all different types of experiences, and that we're not all the same, because a lot of times, people look as Black people or the experience as a monolith, and sometimes I think people are may feel like boxed in by it, but I think this book highlights that we're all different, and that's a good thing. So we all have varied experiences, and we all can learn from each other.
Okay. Isaiah, what was that? I guess kind of themes or point of views or topics that you kind of identify with, or you discovered as you read these different short stories by Nafissa Thompson-Spires?
For me, as I, went through and reading the books chapter after chapter, Nafissa writes about being Black in America. And these stories represent both powerful takes and new angles on these issues, at least for me, whether it was something as obvious as Black youth getting gunned down, or a reason by police officer, or Black politics within academia. I feel that I understand these situations, just a much better, from having read these stories. It helps the author, write beautiful sentences. Nafissa, she isn't afraid to actually go there and stray away from the convention. Don't, like you all said, don't put, just all Black people into one box. We all like all different things, all different genres. I don't care whether it's skydiving or whether you go into, like you say, seeing these different animation. Like, we all like different things, and that's what makes the Black experience us. That makes us unique. And I think that she highlighted every single thing. And then whether you have actually experienced some of these stories or even heard some of these stories, we all felt comfortable because all these stories resonated with something that's within our lives.
Good. Yeah, brother, I think you have a good point. Like I said, it's just so much, and we're not, kind of just typed or one type of people. Our culture, and all cultures, have different varieties of people, ideas, thoughts, and expressions of that. And so I think Nafissa does a good job of really kind of capturing that throughout this book, Heads of the Colored People. So again, if you guys haven't picked it up and read it already, I hope that us kind of talking about and discussing it will be kind of a movement for you to kind of pick it up and read this book. Like I said, it's a good collection of short stories. I was a little upset because I wanted to see the ending. Like, she was drawing me in and then she cut me off at the legs. And so that was my only complaint if I had one, but I think it was very relatable. So if you guys haven't already, check out the book. It's a good read. And it does, like Isaiah mentioned, kind of showcase and highlight the experience and expression that we have as Black people living in the United States of America. So good read, check it out, go pick it up. All right, so look, we're gonna transition a little bit. We're gonna pivot a little bit. 4 friends in a book. We read books, but we also have discussions about current event, hot topics, things that are trending or relevant to today's time. And so, Isaiah, you kind of mentioned it. So one of the stories within the book was 2 chalk outlines. So actually, 2 of the characters within the book end up being shot and killed. And so even in today's time, we're in this space again where gun violence, mass shootings they're starting to run rampant again. We had the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. We had the shooting at the grocery store in Buffalo. And so the discussion about gun control has come to the forefront again. This is nothing new. We've had these discussions over the decades. We've been talking about school shootings back in Columbine and other things. So even here locally in Georgia, our governor has recently signed legislation that allows I guess the citizens to now carry guns without a permit. So not requiring you to be licensed. You can now still carry without any type of permit. So the discussion about gun control, gun safety, new legislation is kind of really at the forefront now, especially with the amount of mass shootings and just deaths in general. We hear the discussion, the United States has the most guns and also the most deaths by guns amongst all other countries. So I kind of want to talk about that. Like I said, in the book, there was a chapter where, 2 young men died at the hands of guns. And so kind of relating that to what we're seeing right now as well. So what are you guys' thoughts about I guess kind of even let's start at the beginning. What do you stand on Second Amendment rights, or what are your thoughts about the Second Amendment right, which I guess grants us citizens the right to bear arms? And we're gonna come back to Ms. Lake. We're gonna start with her on this one.
Okay. Well, I am not a gun owner, but I have shotguns. So I believe that we as citizens, I think we do have the right to bear arms or have guns for our protection. I'm not opposed to guns. I think anything like guns, like alcohol, whatever, you need to be responsible in your use of them. But I am not opposed to guns or gun usage.
Okay. Like I'm coming to Laria next. I want to hear the female perspective, and then we're gonna switch over. So, Laria, what are your thoughts on this Second Amendment right?
Second Amendment. Okay. So let's go back to the history of the Second Amendment and why it was there. You know, I think we need to update a lot of things. Going back to, as Kim said, I'm not opposed to guns, but my thing is, why do I need a gun? Like, what do I need one for? And I'm not just talking about just for me, I'm talking about everybody. Why do we need them? Are they for recreational usage, for going out deer hunting? Or is this just if I feel somebody comes on my property or something and I think they may do something to me that I can start shooting because I'm a citizen? And I just feel that the Second Amendment is kind of outdated. And I think it needs to be, we got a right to do a lot of things, but is it beneficial? Is it helpful? So, I mean, you can have it. Oh, I believe if somebody's trying to break in your house, yeah, of course you're going to need a gun, but you're going to need a gun because they got one. You know what I'm saying? So that's really the whole point of having a gun at this point, is to protect yourself from the fool who's got one, who's not being responsible. But anyway, so yeah, that's where I am with the Second Amendment. I just feel that it's outdated. It was done at a time when people were vigilantes. They were running people off their land. They were killing people. If we just go back and be honest about it, it wasn't for good reason. So yeah, that's where I am with it, if that makes sense.
Perfect.
Interesting. Yeah. Like my boy says sometimes, interesting. All right, Isaiah, what are your thoughts on this topic?
For me, the Second Amendment is the only constitutional right people pretend that can't have any regulation. This amendment guarantees the right. It does guarantee the right to bear arms, but it doesn't say that you can have any weapons you want and that you can that you can actually use them as you should want to, as easy as it has become. And it has become easier to get an automatic weapon than it is to adopt a dog. The Second Amendment is why we can't go to school or work or the house of worship or a nightclub or just going anywhere outside in a public gathering without fear of being shot. And the Second Amendment is why you can't immediately be arrested for openly carrying an assault rifle in a public place. And you can't be immediately arrested for even smuggling a hand cannon in your gym shorts. And like Lareal say, when this Second Amendment was actually drafted, it was at a time when militias was actually coming to your home, but we live in 2022. Militias are not coming to your home at the time. And if the government does come to your home, there's nothing that you or your handgun can do to stop that bulldozer from coming inside your home. So I think that's something that should be drafted more consciously of what the Second Amendment should actually stand for in the modern day times, and not when it's actually written in the 1700s.
That's good. So let's kind of unpack this. Look, I consider myself to be an amateur historian, so let's unpack the history a little bit. So first of all, I am pro Second Amendment. I am a gun owner. I am a licensed concealed carry owner. I have always kind of shot guns. Started out, my dad got me into hunting and fishing at a young age. So started out kind of that area, but then kind of moved into more recreational shooting. Like I said, my friends, we go out shooting. I frequent the gun range. So I am pro Second Amendment. But I do think, like you guys mentioned, the history of it is a little different. So even looking at the right to form militias and also to bear arms, I think that was kind of, again, 1791 was when the Second Amendment was drafted or ratified. And I think at that time it was really kind of predicated on the notion of the states retaining power, not allowing the big government or federal government to kind of supersede some of the state rights. You also had this thing that was going on within the states. Let's be honest about it. So slave patrol was a big thing within the states, especially the southern states. So you just came off of this Haitian Revolution where Haitians, Black people that were enslaved have now freed themselves, and I think that was a concern as well, even within the United States, as far as slave revolts, and you kind of see that happening. Nat Turner, Denmark VC, all these things that happen where people then formed militias and had guns. Slave owners had guns to kind of control certain aspects of their population, and even with that being said, free Black people couldn't have and own guns at that time. So we had the Constitution. It wasn't really for Black people at that time. Even similar to voting, we didn't have those rights. But now things are kind of changed, and so I view it kind of in the same lanes of that. Initially it wasn't for us, but the access is now granted. So I think, like anything else, we should take advantage of it. I'm not opposed to it being regulated more. I'm not opposed to, laws being in place to kind of. I've heard Brock talk about it one time where he was mentioning how it's so much money involved in politics into it. They won't even allow studies of gun and murder and crime and how these things have an effect. So I think those are kind of all factors that kind of really spawned this whole notion about gun control, gun safety, and all that aspect. So it's kind of been a back and forth conversation for a long period of time. So all right, so kind of even moving a little further with that. So right now we're hearing discussion about, again, these 18-year-olds now having, Isaiah kind of mentioned it, easier to go get an assault rifle than it is to kind of perform other acts. You can't even legally drink, but you at 18 can now go purchase an assault rifle. So do you guys think that there should be stricter gun laws? You think there are laws that are currently on the books are enough? What are your thoughts in that area? And I'm gonna come to Isaiah on this one and kind of get your input.
Okay. Well, for me, yes, I support, stricter gun laws. There should be, a ban on assault weapons, raising the age to purchase weapons from 18 to 21, institute a national buyback program, limit the number of guns each person or each home can actually have, and strengthen the background check. And sometimes they need to actually stop doing this instant background check as well. As Chris said, you're a respectable person of the community. So I respect people who actually have gun ownerships. They actually know how to do it. They actually know what they're doing. And I think they're, a useful tool in protecting, yourself and as well as your home. And I just have doubts about, the ways that some people just imagine how they'll handle themselves, in a mass shooting type of an event. And I think the most forceful reaction to these stricter gun laws would be to hold the gun manufacturers liable. And the reason I say this is that because gun rights activists know that gun control cannot get past the Congress, but holding the gun manufacturers liable is a path I think that should be explored.
Okay, good. Laria, what are your thoughts on this topic? So are you for or do you oppose for stricter gun laws within the United States?
I think we do need some stricter gun laws. As I said before, you want a handgun or you want to go deer hunting or doing different things, cool. And I even know a person, he's a part of a gun club thing where they do You can see them on YouTube where they do those makeshift like scenarios or you shoot with certain guns and all that. I think that's cool if you go to like a gun range and you can check out guns and you want to, some people have a fascination with that. That's cool. But I don't think it should be so easy for you to just go buy AK-47 or whatever the guns are. You just go to a gun show. Oh, let me just buy this gun and now I've got it. I think that's that's scary. That's like giving a car to a 16, 17-year-old, 18-year-old. They don't know what to do yet. That's why your parents give you so many rules, like make sure that you do this, make sure that you do that, because it's almost like having a loaded gun. And I don't think that everybody is responsible. So I feel that we do definitely need some stricter laws when it comes to those guns like that. Because I mean, by the time I pull my pistol out, you done shot 800 shots. Like, I mean, what? That's how all these people are getting killed, because it's just like, I mean, you can come in and just, I mean, why do we have these out in regular, everyday life? Like, what are you doing? You're not going to war. We're not in war. So what do you need these for? That's my thing.
Yeah. And I understand that. And like I said, again, I shoot for sport and recreation. I also hunt. So I kind of understand both sides of it. With some of the guns that are kind of just more for, some people just get excited by guns and just kind of the thrill of shooting and those aspects of it. I'm not opposed to stricter laws. I think the majority of gun owners and people that shoot are very responsible. And I think that they are doing what's right, going through the right processes to ensure that they are allowed to have these firearms and that they are doing the proper things to obtain them. I'm not opposed to more things put in place, especially with gun safety. I think a lot of people, just because we have access, they're just going out and get them, but they don't have the proper training, the understanding. Like I said, I started at a very young age with my father kind of instilling and teaching me these things. So over the years, of course, I've become more experienced. But I think some people you don't have that background and you aren't required to have certain training. You're just going out and get stuff, and now you can become a danger to others. So I'm not opposed to having some laws enacted to try to make it safer. The other part of it is, though, I think sometimes, especially when we talk about, legal and lawful gun owners, but also the criminal aspect of it, whereas the criminals aren't going through these things. And so that's the part that can be kind of blurry sometimes. If you're a criminal, you're already doing crime. So you're not obtaining these guns in a legal manner anyway. So a lot of times that becomes you're adding more to the people that actually want to, do things the right way and legally. But the criminals are still doing stuff, irresponsible and doing illegal means of obtaining stuff anyway. So you're not really capturing and preventing them in certain aspects. So I think that's kind of the argument that some people have that are opposed to stricter gun laws. But like I said, me personally, I think there needs to be a balance to really ensure that things are just safe and that we are, as a people and as a nation, are just safe with guns. And I was just considering the amount of deaths that we've had by the hands of guns. It's getting ridiculous. So something does have to change. Something needs to change in that area. So, all right. So Kim, what are your thoughts on this topic about gun laws, gun control? Do we have enough legislation, laws in place right now? Do we need to kind of roll that back? What are your thoughts on that?
I am actually for stricter gun laws, and I'm glad you brought up that argument with people. It's not like Isaiah said, people act like this is the only thing you can't put regulations on, but I know a lot of people say like, well, there's criminals and criminals aren't going to follow the law. So, we need to like leave the laws how they are. But in every other area, we put stricter laws in when something happens. For instance, 9/11 happened. Right after 9/11, we could, they got the TSA, you got to take your shoes off. You can't, all these regulations came into place. Nobody was like, well, a terrorist is going to just be a terrorist. So even though we have these laws in place, if they want to do something, they're going to do it anyway. So we don't need these stricter laws. Like every other area of life, we do this. I remember when they had the whole hearing about when somebody was tampering with Tylenol and killing people. Right after that, we regulated. Everything has to have a safety cap and all the like tamper evident things. So we do that in every other area. So I don't see why we can't do it with guns. There's other countries that show that when they put a ban on assault rifles or bans on this, like the shootings do go down. So I think having these stricter laws will help because they are shown to help in every other area. When we lock down stuff, it seems to help. So I think in this instance, it will help as well. So I don't know why people are so against it in this area, because it literally in every other area happens like immediately. So I'm for stricter gun laws. And yeah, criminals are going to be criminals. But I mean, we look at abortion. People were against abortion. What do? They try to put stricter laws in place to kind of quell the abortions happening. So if that's the case, we using that same reasoning, because usually conservatives on the right have this reasoning. So if why have stricter laws for abortions? Because if you want an abortion, you're going to get one anyway. So but they still put those laws in place. So I think having stricter laws are a good thing, and it shows just historically in other countries that it does work.
Sounds good.
I love that.
That's good. That's good. I think you guys all bring up good points. I think the one kind of elephant in this room is the amount of money that is surrounded about, the NRA gun ownership. Like, I think that's kind of really the elephant in the room as far as how corporations are really influencing how the laws and legislation works within our country. And I think that's kind of the bad aspect of it. There's so much money in politics, and not only even in guns, but other things as well. And so until we really resolve some of those issues and some of the greed and just kind of, influence that corporations have with the dollar, I think we're also going to just have a hard time of really getting certain things, put in place. After all these mass shootings, school shootings, you would have thought that we would have done something by now. But again, the money has been the driver for so much. And it's really sad to kind of see that. All right, so one more question about this, and we'll kind of move on. So again, had the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, just another tragic event where, the loss of life by kids just, for no reason at all. So the discussion has come up often about arming teachers or having guards at school. So considering the amount of mass shootings that we have had at schools, what are you guys' thoughts on that kind of notion or concept of arming the teachers or having armed guards at the school, and kind of what effect would you even think that could potentially have? So, Maria, let's come to you on that one. What are your thoughts on that?
No, Kimosabi. Don't think the teachers need guns. They already trying to make sure that they're not hitting nobody, fight nobody back. And some people, just because they're a teacher doesn't mean that they're mentally stable to have a gun. I mean, I think we would have more instances of guns going off. Somebody didn't have a safety lock on the gun. One of the kids got into the gun. It's too much. So, and like I said, when we look at these school shootings, they're coming in with assault rifles. Unless you got an assault rifle, you can't compete with that. It's going to be kind of like on Harlem Nights. And I just think that's going to be helped at all, because that's going to pose another security risk to the child. If you want to do metal detectors or something like that, okay. But once again, Sandy Hook and the school in Texas, those were elementary schools. So what elementary kid, coming in with a gun? It's not from them. It's from the outside coming in. So I believe maybe we need to have an officer at each school or something, maybe to make sure that things are, just to bring the level down. Because when people see a police car anywhere, the level of obedience comes in. There's a level of respect that happens. So, but yeah, that's I don't believe I don't believe that teachers should have guns in the classroom. I don't think that should. No.
Okay, good. Isaiah, what about you, brother?
I think it's just important to remember that, Republicans are not interested in solving problems. They're interested in creating pretextual excuses to absolve them from having to solve problems. And the folks who are talking about hardening schools are now the same folks who couldn't even figure out how to provide ventilation for these same schools to protect the kids from the pandemic. And now teachers have been yelling about how stressed and exhausted they are for years, and now you want to put guns in the hands of people that already are stressed and exhausted. And I think the easiest way to protect school children from gun violence is to restrict access to guns. The safest way to protect children from gun violence is to restrict access to guns. And the most cost-effective way to protect children from gun violence is to restrict access to guns, not put more guns in the school. Like you said, they could be more easy for children to get the guns. Why not just take them out and just actually do not put a Band-Aid on this situation and actually deal with it head on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you kind of highlighted the Band-Aid. So, all right, Kim, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah,
Teachers being armed in school systems.
I say no as well. I did a short stint as a substitute teacher, so I could not imagine having to do that and worry about having a gun. And then, like, you're already worried about the safety of your kids in the class, so now you got to worry about having the gun locked up so kids can't get the gun. Like Maria said, people are unstable, on edge, and I think when you are angry about something, or you just have a moment, just you're seeing red, having a gun there makes it easier for you to react with it. So I just think it's a big liability and a big mess. So I'm for you having armed security, or like Maria said, a police officer in the school. I know the school I did in Tennessee that I subbed at, they had 2 officers that were actual police officers that would, drive around the school and the campus, all that stuff. I'm for that. But as far as teachers, no, I just think that would be a big, big mess.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And even now, we're still hearing some of the testimony about the stuff that happened at Uvalde, and just even, the trained police officers weren't even willing to go in, and they were armed already. So
trained officers.
That's a lot to leverage on a teacher. I don't think it should be mandated. I don't think it should be required. Teachers are already underpaid, overworked. That's a lot to ask of them. I think if that's something they want to do, maybe the option should be there. The same way you have the option, within our country to carry a gun or choose not to. But I don't think it should be required. I don't think it should be mandated. Like I said, they got enough on their plate at this point to be trying to worry about now also trying to shoot back at somebody. So, all right. So good conversation, good discussion. We just wrapped up the book, Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Thompson-Spires. Had the discussion about gun control, gun rights, and just everything that's going on right now in this country. It's so much. But again, we have to have these discussions. We have to kind of talk about it to kind of unpack so we can move forward. So I appreciate you guys. Good input, good feedback, good discussion. I always want to hear from y'all. I love
Great
it.
discussion.
All right, so look, y'all already know what time it is. We have it every episode. It's called The Rant. 60 seconds, uninterrupted, speaking from the heart, whatever's on your mind, whatever you're feeling. We don't debate it. We don't really contest it. Just letting it flow. from none other than my boy, Mr. Rant Man himself. He killed these rants every episode. We gotta give them to you. It wouldn't be a show without one. So my brother Isaiah Toots with this rant. We never know what we getting. It's always new to us. So my brother, do what you do. Starting now. Go.
It's interesting that we actually had this discussion on gun violence. And, it may not be the time, but I'll say it anyway. It needs to be sensible gun legislation that is actually needed. Mass shootings are occurring legitimately every single day. 198 mass shootings have occurred, and it's only June. Each day, you can't even catch your breath because you're dealing with another mass shooting, from either Black folks getting massacred in Tops grocery store in Buffalo to the school shooting in Uvalde, Texas. America will force people to have children, but won't lift a finger to support or protect those victims of gun violence. The same politicians restricting abortion rights are the same ones that have unfettered access to guns in spite of these repeated shootings. And these tragedies keep happening for a reason. There is no way that you can be pro-life and pro-unrestricted Second Amendment. How many lives have become collateral damage due to these unchecked gun control? Politicians have decided that these dead victims are a price they're willing to pay to maintain political power. And that's that on that.
We say it often here on Four Friends in the Book. We have to kind of be the catalyst for change that we want to see. We have to exercise our rights, which is voting. We're voting these politicians into office, and we have to hold them accountable. And we have to really try to push for the change that we want to see, because, like I said, it's at the expense of lives at this point. So we got to do something to fix this and to rectify this problem. So good rant, brother. Good discussion. All right. Four Friends in the Book podcast. We read books over here. So we're going to tell you about the book we got for next month. We want you guys to read with us. So Isaiah, tell them what we got coming up for next month.
And as Chris said, each month we try to bring something new, a new perspective that you actually can read. And next month, we'll actually be reading The Eyes of Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. Laria, please let the viewers know when they can tune in.
You can tune in every third Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
And you can like us on Facebook and follow us on Instagram to keep up with our latest shows and the latest content we are putting out. And we would love to hear from you.
All right. As always, guys, we thank you for tuning in with us, for your support, for just rocking with Four Friends in the Book podcast. Mm-hmm. And again, let's continue to read, let's learn, let's grow, and let's have a discussion here on Four Friends in the Book. Thank you.
Thank you.